Okay, welcome to our 228th Reading Online Sports Economics Seminar. It is great to have Jaime Cuéllar-Martín presenting not for long an analysis of the efficiency and survival of NFL head coaches. Just before he starts, as this is the last seminar before the Easter break, just to reiterate some deadlines, abstract deadlines for conferences that are coming up very soon. There is on the 28th, so that's tomorrow, the abstract submission deadline for the North American Association of Sports Economists sessions at the Southern Economic Association Conference in Houston, Texas. That's in November. If you want to submit to that conference, Frank Stevenson, efstevenson@berry.edu. And the information is in the reminder. Then on the 31st of March, so next Tuesday, is the deadline for the European Sports Economic Association annual conference in Zurich. That conference will be in August. Yes, August 19th to 21st. And again, there's information in the reminder about how you can submit an abstract for that conference. And then finally, on April the 1st, so next Wednesday, is the deadline for the 20th Gijón Sports Economics Conference. And again, submission process there is to email Petido Rodriguez, and the email address is in the reminder. So Jaime is happy to take questions as he goes along. So if you have any questions for him, do raise your hand, and he's happy for you to interrupt him. And other than that, the floor is yours, Jaime.
Okay, so thank you to invite me to these talks. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Jaime Cuéllar-Martín. I'm from the University of Valladolid, and today we're presenting my research, whose title is Not for Long, an analysis of the efficiency and survival of NFL head coaches. Okay. Here's a brief outline of our session. I will start by introducing our research questions, followed by a review of the existing literature. We will then establish the conceptual framework and detail the methodology used. And finally, I will describe my database, which is self-made, present some of the main results, and finally end with some of the conclusions of my work. So let's begin with the core research questions that's driving this study. Our primary objective is to study the degree of technical efficiency, or T, along the presentation, as we can see, of head coaches in one of the most competitive environments in the world of sports, which is the National Football League, the most important league of American football in the world. And also, we also try to measure the determinants of this efficiency, the technical efficiency. And finally, answer a critical question. Is technical efficiency relevant for remaining in the league as a head coach? Also, I try to highlight some key elements. One of them is that my approach are focused in the production of sports output, which allows me to distinct between random and stochastic elements for the determinants of this efficiency. Some of the elements that influence the head coach work are not under his control. So it could be interesting to separate that from other elements that impacts directly to his control, which is his personal characteristics, the influence of the front office, or maybe the asymmetry of the calendar that we can measure easily. Some of that are not under his control, but it's easily to measure and try to disentang from other random elements. And finally, we perform a survival analysis to try to link if this technical efficiency is important to predict or to know in some aspect the length of the head coach career in this environment. Talking about the literature review, the analysis of productive efficiency in sports traced back to the pioneering works by Rothenberg in 1956 and also the work of Scully in 1994. This last work is very similar to what I do here. It's a huge inspiration to to do this research. But since that works, there are other sport contexts where these frameworks are expanded. This framework has been applied in the world of basketball from a lot of different worlds, the world of baseball, soccer, or what we call here in Europe as football. And finally, in the hockey context. But in my revision of literature, and according to the work of Malone, among others, there are not a lot of works that analyze the head coach role in the NFL context, considering that head coach role as a key piece to determine the exit of a club, of a franchise. Notably, the works of Hadley, among others, in 2000, and Collier, among others, are maybe the most similar to what I do here, because they are focused in the head coach role. But they also use other different econometric methods as a Poisson model and a different collection of DA, OLS, and other methods to estimate the technical efficiency in the NFL. But exploring this literature in other semi-professional works, as the college world, we find another works, as the work of Maxby and Brook, that points looks very closer to the work of the head coach, but they are focusing on other different fields as college. It's the same sport, but it's not the same environment. So it could be different to what we players and head coaches have to do in a semi-professional world as college, and what we do in a professional world as the NFL. For example, in the college world, the head coaches are also the responsibles to recruit to the recruitment, and have another task, not also to act as a general manager in the sports context, in the sport process. And in the NFL, there is a very profound distinction between the work of the head coach, which is the principal responsible in the context, in the sport context, and the front office, which are more focusing in select the talent in the draft. So there are different elements among these two parallel works. We can see that in that terms. Also, the second pillar of our literature review is the survival analysis in sports, which study the time until event takes place. In our case, the event will be the dismissal of the firing of the head coach. And also, previous literature has widely applied several different techniques as non-parametric, the Kaplan-Meier analysis, or Nelson Allen different Nelson Allen analysis in the case of hazard rates. Also applied semi-parametric analysis as the Cox hazard model, the proportional hazard model, and finally different parametric models. So in this case, different areas of research has been developed, as the player survival time, the effect of injuries over professional career. In the case of the professional, maybe most of them football players, as the work of Ifer and Isner. Match substitutions, as the work of Julio del Corral, among others. And finally, different works that are more similar to my work, which is the staff survival. Also, in this case, maybe one of the most influential works to this research that I present here today is the work of Boltz, because he analyzed the survival of the managers in the MLB And in a second case, they applied a survival analysis to try to determine if there are if the ethnicity plays a key role or not. In our case, the ethnicity is other important element, but not is the key role. But the design of the research is very similar. Talking about the American, in the case of American football specifically, in this case, there is a substantial body of work analyzing the survival, but a significant portion of this literature focus on the role of the ethnicity. Some works explore the impact of the Rooney Rule, which try to reduce the difference or the opportunities at the time of being hired by the minorities and the white coaches. Other works find that the black head coaches have worse perspectives about its job maintenance, but in general, there are a lot of different researches that find mixed results. The research is not conclusive in this case. So, moving to our conceptual framework, it's vital to understand the environment in which these coaches operate. Some important points to try to focus our attention in the NFL. First of all, the NFL it was established in 1920 and is a closed league, which means that there are no promotions and no relegation, as we are as we usually see in the European leagues, such as the Premier League or the La Liga, in the case of Spain. It is composed by 32 professional franchises, we also know here in Europe as clubs, and they are divided into major conferences: the NFC, the National Football Conference, and the AFC, the American Football Conference, and also they are subdivided into 4 regional divisions: the North American Football Conference, the North National Football Conference, the South, the East, and the West. 4 for each major conference. And in each regional division, there are 4 clubs. So, with this in mind, we have our 32 professional franchises. Other important aspect is that teams, different to what we usually see here in Europe, teams play a highly asymmetric schedule. This means that not all the teams, not all the franchises, compete against each other due to the violence of the sport, the highly demand of the physical effort of the players, among others, and the schedule is structured in a 70-week regular season. Each club plays 16 games, 8 at home and 8 in a foreign field, and they have 1 rest week, which is called the bye week. In this regard, I have to say that my research is focusing among the years 2012 and 2013, and 2019. So in this period, the league it was a 17-week regular season, but actually a few years ago, I think that after the pandemic, more or less, they expand one more game. So actually, the NFL franchises playing in an 18 regular season. But we also focus. I focus my research when the schedule it was structured in a 17-week regular season. Other important elements, it's that about the structure of the game. First of all, the game is structured in a 4 15-minute quarters, which is frequently paused because injuries, incomplete passes, or plays that end out of bounds. The objective is very clear for each team, is to try to maximize the points accumulation. And this could be achieved in 3 different phases of play, which usually called the offense phase, the defense phase, and finally a marginal phase in our study, which is the special teams phase. In the case of the offense, the goal is very clear: try to advance the ball into the opposite end zones to achieve a 6 points conversion, which usually called a touchdown, or try to achieve a 2 points if the offense think it's a good strategy to try to kick a field goal from the most of the time from the opposite field from the field that it's not his own field, but there are a lot of different things in the strategies. One key element is that each offense has 4 attempts to try to advance the ball into the opposite end zone, to try to advance the ball, to try concurrently to try to achieve 10 or more yards in his advance, which in the NFL and in the American football language is usually called downs. First down, second down, third down, and finally a fourth down. If the offense don't achieve an advance at least of 10 yards among these 4 attempts, the ball goes to the other team. So the offense tried to advance the ball from different strategies. Maybe give the ball to a running back, which is a specific position in the offense, and try to advance the ball by running the ball, or try to throw the ball through different eligible players, which usually is called a pass. There are a lot of different strategies and a lot of different trick plays, but these are more or less the key elements of the offense. In a second case, the defense tries to do the opposite, prevent the opposite team from scoring. They could employ different kinds of tackles, different kinds of strategies to try to prevent the advance of the ball. And finally, another important element is that 11 players plays for each team in each of the phases. As we said before, the special teams phase is not very important in this work, so I don't speak a lot about that. But it's a very special phase that usually takes place in the 4th down attempt, which is a critical attempt for the team to try to advance the ball in the case of the offense, or for the defense to try to stop the advance of the other team. So with this in mind, to me and for this research, it's important to highlight the head coach roles. Different to other sports that we talked before, as basketball or maybe soccer, the role of the head coach in the NFL is it's a little different about the role of the head coaches in that other context. In this case, the head coach occupies pivotal middle management role, as illustrated in Figure 1. And they act as important link between the sports area and the front office, which in this in this slide I represent as the GM. The GM is the representative of the front office and is the superior, the figure that is upper, the head coach. So the head coach has the role of trying to coordinate all the elements that have more relation with the develop of the games. In this case, the staff is composed by 3 key elements, which is the offensive coordinator, the one coach that are focused in the offensive side of the ball, the defensive coordinator, which does the same work but in the defensive area, and finally the special teams coordinator. Usually, the head coach relegates the tactical tasks to the offensive coordinator, defensive coordinator, and special teams. And the head coach acts more as a coordinator of the coordinators. So in this case, it's different with the role, for example, of the head coach in the soccer club, which usually he or she assumes the tactical tasks. In this case, the tactical tasks more or less are more relegated to the coordinators. So with this in mind, the role of the head coach is there's a very important role of the head coach, and it is also a motivation to center my work in the role of the head coach more than the franchise or other elements. Well, as we comment before, we model this dynamic using the theory of sports production. We question as well as, among other works, as LIA 2040, etc., the maximum efficiency hypothesis, acknowledging that inefficiencies naturally exist in the sports production process. So our maximum output, which is represented by the equation in the first equation, is multiplied by another element, which is the technical efficiency. This tried to show that in the process of sport production, the head coach not all time achieve the maximum output, sports output. So there are inefficiencies in the process that could be captured by this term. So in this case, solving for TAI, as we can see in the equation number 3, we can construct technical efficient index, which relations the actual output of the head coach, which in this case is represented by the letter O, and the potential output that the head coach could achieve with the resources that they have. So in this case, the letter E represents the skills of the players that the head coach have in the franchise, in the club. X represents the characteristics of the head coach, personal and professional. S represents the characteristics of the coordinators, the offensive and defensive coordinator. G represents the influence of the front office, which is very important as we see before. And finally, R are other elements that represents, for example, the symmetry of the calendar, which influence the work and the performance of the head coach. So, assuming a Cobb-Douglas production function, we can separate our error term in two components. In a first of all, there is a random component which captures random shocks like lag, injuries, or unfavorable weather. And finally, our most important element, which is the second element, the letter U, which represents the technical inefficiency. This inefficiency incorporates the head coach characteristics, the general manager impacts, and rival characteristics. I model that technical efficiency, or I try to include these elements in the technical efficiency due to there are, as I said before, different elements that the head coach controls directly, as well its own characteristics, and other elements that operates through his job directly, as the asymmetry of the calendar and the influence of the front office. The other elements, the E is the skills of the players, and the characteristic of the coordinators, which is represented by letter S, are modeled here in the frontier. Due to there are elements that the head coach controls directly, and it could be used by him to try to achieve the potential output. So the other elements influence the achievement of the potential output, but act as an element to try to measure the inefficiency. In this case, it's possible to model technical efficiency through this element that I commented before. and the characteristics of the head coach, the impact of the general manager, and the characteristics of the rivals will be the exogenous variables to try to model that this element. Very shortly, to talk about the survival in the head coach position and the second element of our research, it's important to ask the questions that we commented before. So why does this efficiency matter? We frame head coach survival in this case through the principal agent theory. So the general manager acts as the principal who delegates sports management to the head coach, which acts as the agent. This is a very common framework to try to try to disentangle the jobs of the general manager and the head coach. And according to the structure of an NFL franchise, it could be very appropriate to assume that framework. So in this case, if the coach fails to meet the principal expectations regarding sports production, the probability of dismissal increases. These are our main hypotheses. Talking about the methodology to measure this, I use stochastic frontier analysis. In this case, this technique was proposed in the seminal work of Einer, among others, and Musen van den Broek. I use a stochastic frontier in its production modality due to the role of the head coach is try to produce the potential output. And finally, we have to consider distribution from the technical inefficiency term. In this case, we assume a half-normal distribution for the inefficiency term, but I could say that I prove with other distributions such as the truncated normal, the exponential distribution, and the results are robust. In this case, as we commented before, we model technical efficiency by incorporate a vector of exogenous variable to estimate our parameters, as we commented before. So no more to say about that. Finally, this allows us to estimate the technical efficiency index, as we can see in the first equation, calculating the ratio of observed output to the maximum potential output that the head coach could achieve with the resources that they have. It's important to have this in mind. Okay, so once we have our efficiency scores, we transition to survival analysis. We evaluate we try to analyze the survival of the head coaches through two types of models. First, a semi-parametric model, which is the cost proportional hazard model, cost proportional hazard, and finally a set of three parametric models, which is the exponential model, the Weibull, and the Gompers. In this case, we evaluate the multiplicative effect of our variables on the probability of a coach being fired using these kind of models. In this case, we also include other three elements that we comment when we present the results with the technical efficiency to try to model the probability that the failure, in this case the dismissal, as we commented before, occurs from this head coach, from the different head coaches. Try to establish a relationship between the technical efficiency and other elements that could be influencing the length of the career of the head coach. Talking about our database, as we commented before, it's a self-made database. I elaborate combining data from Pro Football Reference, from Spotrac, Over the Cap, and Team Rankings, which are data repositories webs, the data is very commonly used in that kind of researches. I employ a pool panel which covers 71 NFL head coaches, more or less yielding to 2024 observations. And in this case, it's important to say that the head coach that finally I include in my research has a minimum of 8 games as head coach, which represents in that case the 50% of total season games. The head coaches which are dismissal during the season, which are not is not often in the NFL, are excluded from the analysis if they don't have a minimum of 8 games per season. Also, it's important to highlight that our survival analysis, it's also a good element to try to manage the existence of rising, soaring, and lay entries, due to not all the coaches are hired at the same time, and not all the coaches are dismissed, are fired at the end of our study. There are a lot of coaches that continues in their works. So the survival analysis, maybe it's a good element to try to tackle this reality. In this case, to end the database, I comment that the output that I use is the winning percentage during the regular season. We exclude the playoffs, so we only focus in the regular season. And our inputs includes the elements that I commented before, which is the relative salary cap by position. In this case, we try to measure the skills of the players with the salary cap that they have in the team. In this case, or in other words, the percentage of the salary cap that they occupies among considering all the elements in the franchises. So I calculate the relative salary cap by position for the QBs, from the running backs, for the wide receivers, for the defense, and divide by the total amount of the league. In this case, I only consider the players that have a minimum of 13% of snaps, which is a very common measure to only takes into account the players that really contribute to the franchise. But my results are also robust when we consider all the players of the team. X are the characteristics or sports skills of the head coach, such as his background, his tenure, if the head coach has another job in another franchise in the past, etc. S are the characteristics of the coordinator, the offensive and defensive coordinator, the tenure in the franchise, and also if they have the same job in another franchise, different. Finally, G is the impact of the sports manager through two variables, which are the permanent of the general manager, and if the general manager was a player, an NFL player in the past. And finally, other sports factors, such as an index, which is called the strength of schedule, which informs us about the difficulty of the calendar of the franchise for that year, due to asymmetry of the calendar. One important element is that all these variables are ex ante. So we collect the information before the year that we analyze, try to avoid endogeneity problems. With this in mind, if we look at our results, I construct 4 different econometric specifications, trying to incorporate different elements or change different variables to see if the results change, but there are a lot of stability in the majority of the coefficients. in this case, the specification that has more predict power, which is better, is the force specification according to Akaike and Schwartz criteria, as we can see at the bottom of the table in the statistics part. And in this case, our frontier estimation revealed a highly significant positive impact of the offensive line, which are the players that protects the quarterback when he throws the ball, and try to open different gaps or different trying to execute different plays in the case of the run strategy from the running back, which is the player that plays behind them. And also these 5 players are some of the key elements in the franchises. If we could see the different drafts in the last years, in the very high positions, most of them are players that belong to this position. So this is not surprising. Other element that I want to highlight is the defensive coordinator tenure, which are associated with positive impact over the potential output that the team could achieve. So if we move to the technical efficiency index that we can predict with this specification, we find that the average efficiency score across the seasons is among 0.70 and 0.6. Meaning that coaches operate at roughly 72% of their team maximum potential. But we also have to have in mind that there is a very important dispersion, as the kernel distribution on the right shows. So we can distinguish 3 different groups. One group of low efficiency head coaches, which are localized maybe here between the 0.2 and 0.4, a group of medium performers, and finally a very special group of elite head coaches, which are the Bill Belichick's, the Andy Reid's of Kansas City Chiefs, the John Harbaugh, in this case was in Baltimore Ravens, etc. When I have these results, I try to figure if the technical efficiency is persistent or not. In this case, if this, I have the question in my mind that if a head coach is a good or a bad head coach according to his technical efficiency index, it could change to the next season if he survives, or maybe his cage in his own group of bad, medium, or high head coach or high performers. So with this in mind, in the table 2, I construct a transition matrix based on maybe 149 transitions between consecutive seasons. In this case, the first column shows the efficiency group that the head coach, that the observations of the head coach are in the first period. So, for example, in this case, in the third group, between 0.3 and 0.4, there are 21 head coaches in the period T. The different columns, these 10 columns, shows the transition from this group through other groups. So, for example, in the case of the 25 observations of head coaches in this group, none of them stays in the same group. All the observations move to another group. In this case, there are 14 total transitions. 1 through the first group, a very low performance, 3 to the second, and one to the third, etc. Where are the other 11 observations of head coaches? There are 5 in the most cases. So if we observe that 4 groups which are below the medium performers, the transitions are 1 head coach of 1 observation, 14 and 7 transitions. The other 7 observations are head coaches that been fired. 21 head coaches starts, only 8 transitions. 21 observations of head coaches starts and only 8 there are 8 transitions. The other 13 are 5 and 25 14. But if we focus on the high performers, we see another different story. In this case, 25 start, 18 transits to another different group, but the main diagonal only shows the observations that the observations that stays in the cell group, and these are not the very high numbers. The highest numbers are located in the other groups. So according to this analysis, I can conclude that the persistence of the efficiency is not a very the technical efficiency is not so persistent. In the case if you are a bad performer, you are 5. So you can have a transition to another different element. But if you are a good performer, the cost of stays in the high performance, it's very difficult. So usually you transit to another group, mainly to a low technical efficiency in this case. So in the last group, the very elite head coaches, there are 35 observations, there are 30 transitions. The majority of these head coaches of these observations transits to another group, which is a low performance group. It's very difficult in the NFL to stay at the elite level from a long time. So with this in mind, we present our results from our proportional hazard model. In this case, in the table 3 shows the analysis from the semi-parametric and parametric proportional hazards model. In this case, we construct 4 different models, one semi-parametric, which is the Cox model, as we commented before, and 3 different proportional hazard models, parametric proportional hazard models, or ACM OEC criteria shows that the most adequate maybe is the Weibull model. And in this case, the hazard ratio is 0.011, which inform us about the instant hazard that the head coach have of being fired according to this variable, which is the technical efficiency index that we commented before. In this case, if we translate this into a 10% increment, it has 36.3% of reducing the instant hazard of being dismissal. So in this case, a positive coefficient shows a reduction in the possibility of being dismissal instantly. In this case, the index acts as a protector, as the index increments of the job of the head coach. Other elements that we include are if the head coach belongs to a minority, which is a dummy variable, the WAE, which is the wins above expectations, is a very simple index, which is constructed by the wins that the head coach has in each of the seasons minus the wins that the that the betting odds predicts at the start of the season. Sorry, three variable, which is the fan pressure, constructed by the ratio between the local attendance and the maximum capacity of the stadium. And finally, we include another dummy variable which informs us about if the GM has tenure or not. So these results shows us that according to in efficiency index, if this goes up, it acts as a protector of the job of the head coach. But to support these results, the proportional hypothesis has to be fulfilled. According to my results, in the case of the Webull model, cost model fulfills this hypothesis. But in the case of the Webull model, which is our preferred model, when we interact these variables with the logarithm of time to try to the proportional hypothesis fulfills or not, I obtain that the fan pressure doesn't fulfill this hypothesis. So maybe we try to construct another different models to see the effect of the technical efficiency. With this in mind, I construct other different models, which has the accelerate failure time model. In this case, the only difference is that the dependent variable is the survival time of the head coach, and the other elements are included in this part of the equation, and shows the influence of the regressors over the survival time. In this case, a positive value indicates that a positive value indicates that the time of the event is postponed in the future, so a more long career. And a negative value shows that the length of the career is shortened according to this element. We also include four different models, which are the exponential, Webull, log normal, and log logistic. We perform the same regressions. Finally, according to our results, the log normal is the preferred model according to the ASIAM VIC criteria. And also we obtain that the technical efficiency acts as an element that postpones in the future the event, which is the dismissal of the head coach. In this case, this coefficient is very huge due to the technical efficiency is between the 0 and 1 value, and shows the change between 0 and 1. So if we translate that coefficient in a more manageable element as the increment of 0.1, for each 0.1 increment of this index, the time at the event until the event increments in a 15.2%, which shows 7 months of extra length of the career in the head coach career. Finally, to try to complement our analysis, I construct a probability analysis, which shows that as the index of technical efficiency increments, also the probability of dismissal is reducing. In this case, this margin is very huge due to the technical index is constructed between 0 and 1. But if we observe the graphic, we can conclude that if you are analytic head coach, you don't have nothing, no franchise fires his elite head coach. But if you are a bad performer, your hazard is very high. The probability of dismissal is very high, according to other results. So to conclude, in the case of technical efficiency analysis, finally, we obtained that it's crucial to distinguish between actual and potential sports performance at the time of evaluating the role of the head coach. We observe a substantial impact of the offensive line. One of the most important pieces in all the franchises, in the heart of the franchises. And also the tenure defensive coordinator, maybe because the defensive side of the ball is an effort of a lot of different pieces, not so individual. Finally, the technical efficiency of the head coach is approximately located in the 70% of the team's potential. And not if you achieve a high technical efficiency in one period, does not secure that in the next period you have the same technical efficiency. It's a league which the competitive balance is very high, and maybe try to maintain your head coach job is very difficult as the time passes. Finally, our survival analysis reveals that higher survival rates as the degree of technical efficiency increases, as we can see in the AFT models principally. And another important element, according to the literature that we review, is that according to our results, race component is not significant to the length of the head coach permanence, due to that element is not significant in none of our specifications. So this is all. Thank you for your attendance and for inviting me to this talk.
Thank you very much, Jaime. I'm giving you a team's round of applause. And we have lots of time for questions and comments. And
so one moment, because I'm running out of battery. I tried to connect. I connect the.
Okay, we can wait one moment. Rich had his hand up, and then looks like Jos, you had your hand up as well. So when Jaime gets back, we'll go with Jos. Unless Rich, did you actually have a question? Was that an errant hand or?
Okay. So it was both.
Errant hand and a question.
Yes, yeah. Well, so I was going to put my hand up later because my question is kind of more speculative. In that, how would you transfer this to the college game, and what would you kind of expect to see? Because it's always been a bit of I think it's a strange sport, college football, in many kind of ways to do with efficiency and things. I'd be interested to see how it would transfer. So yeah, this is why it's a late question. It's quite speculative, but I'd still be interested to hear.
It's a very interesting question, but I don't have how to start with the college level. It's usually comments by the media or the professional head coaches. Is the same name of the sport, but it's another different beast due to the role of the head coach. It's very different. The head coach in the college world is focusing in direct the strategy of the team, maybe try to act as a general coordinator, but also he has to recruit. The recruitment period, it's a very exhaustive period. So it's difficult to measure or try to measure the role of the head coach. There are a lot of research papers, as the Maxi paper, which is very famous, that separates the technical efficiency of the head coach according to the recruitment process and also according to his job as a normal head coach. but I don't know if there is same data to try to replicate this stochastic frontier or this method from the college level. Maybe there are there are data for the most critical value to me for me, which is to measure the skills of the players, but I don't know if they are if it's easy to collect, or maybe it is open access. I don't know. I don't have this information.
Thanks. Yeah, I think as you say, the separating the recruitment from playing, maybe it's the recruitment that gets them these, massive long contracts that they have in the college game. And also in recent years, they've changed the way the recruitment works. You can transfer more easily. So perhaps this has even more reinforced this role. I did have a follow-up a different question, if I can jump in, or do we want to let somebody else have a go?
We might as well stay with you, then we'll go to Josh next.
Okay, yeah. So I was wondering about slightly more recent years, because obviously your data stopped a little while ago. Like in recent years, we've seen a number of single season contracts, which is somewhat unusual, or people being, sacked after a single season. Not even Hugh Jackson, who you mentioned. I think he got more than 1 year and he was terrible. So that was interesting. But yeah, so in more recent years, do you think it's going to be a shift at all, or is it more kind of executive behavior being less tolerant of perceived lack of success?
The college football and the world of college changed a lot in the last decades. There, as you comment, the NIL, the NIL, it's very important to determine the stage of the players, and also they are very linked to the work of the head coach. But some of the head coach that I rise with him in watching the college football, such as Nick Saban, or maybe other different elements that are very important in that world, that they yeah the head coaches for this type of head coach is no longer in the college football. So maybe it's important to try to maybe a good research could be to try to measure the effect of these late changes, as well the reorganization of some of the college programs and in different divisions. So maybe in the last years, to see if maybe these elements are more important than if you are good or bad at your job. But in this case, we also have to have in mind that the technical efficiency to us, or to in the case of in my research, is easy to measure. But it doesn't mean that it's easy to perceive from the owners or the front office. Maybe they are focusing on different elements, but some of the changes in the last decades and in the last years, it could be have a huge influence at the time of the length of the careers.
Great stuff.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jaime. Thanks, Rich. Josh, thanks for waiting.
Hello. Absolutely no worries. Thank you very much for your talk, Jaime. I just wondered, you mentioned about injury occurrence being quite a random sort of variable, being one of your random components. I was just wondering sort of how you draw the line between injury occurrence that occurs completely randomly and independently, physicality, or of the coach's style, or injuries that are born directly out of the head coach's style, if that is a particularly, fitness and conditioning based style, or if it caters to a particularly hard style of play where players are expected to get stuck in. Thank you very much.
Thank you. It's a very good question, and I have the same concern about this when I start my research. If you are a fan of the NFL, you could see with different visualizations of the games and with the years that not all the styles are the same. There are different styles that are more physical. There are other styles that exploit the pass game, and maybe there are different elements in that. I try to include that elements. I have a variable about the 4 or 5 different of styles according to the information of Pro Football Reference. I remind that it was West Coast offense, the Erhan Perkins system, which is very, very popular, especially if you are a fan of the Patriots, and maybe the spread offense among that. I introduce that variable and I don't have a statistical significance with that variable. And the prediction of the technical efficiency stays basically the same. In this case, it could be interesting to focus in more in that area. But we also have to have in mind that the game mix a lot of different strategies. Not one strategy is the pure strategy. If you are focusing on for example, the offense of the Kansas City Chiefs, it's a very mixed offense that mixed elements of air raid due to the potential of his quarterback, of Patrick Mahomes, but also due to the formation of Andy Reid, which was a offensive line coach in the past, have a lot of influence of the West Coast offense, who likes to more run the ball with the outside zone and maybe mix with a lot of tight ends with a more physical personnel. So not every offense is pure in this with that level, but I prove with that and I don't have different results. Also with the defenses.
Fair enough, and thank you very much.
Thank you.
Great, thanks, Jaime. More questions and comments? Stefan.
Hi, Jaime. Interesting paper. I have a couple of things that I was wanting to ask about, which was so one, I was struck by your comment on race, and there I was just really wondering whether you have what the power of that test is going to be, because you have very few black coaches in the sample, and it's a relatively small sample. So surely you can't really be very confident that you're capturing these effects. And I guess the other question I had was really again about what this technical efficiency calculation is calculating. Just as a sort of a simple thing, doesn't it just work out that the technical efficiency score is highly correlated with the win-loss record of the team? Or can you cite good examples where the coach has a high technical efficiency score, but the team is lousy, or vice versa?
So thank you for the questions. First of all, yes, there are not much black head coaches or Latin head coaches. I have minus 20% or less. So, and the period is not so long to try to determine the influence of the ethnicity. But in my analysis, it acts more as a control and not the key variable. So I to me, it was important and interesting, according to the literature, to include in my survival analysis. And also, maybe a work for the future is try to analyze if with a period of time, more years, or maybe with different head coaches, try to determine his influence. About the second question, yes, the technical index, the technical efficiency index, in my analysis, it's highly correlated with the win-loss record. I only have a few head coaches which are maybe not so successful, talking about his win-loss record. And the technical efficiency is high. I have in mind Greg Williams in the Cleveland Browns in the 2080 season, and maybe Jim Caldwell in the Detroit Lions in the same years. Ken Whisenhunt in Tennessee Titans have a very high efficiency index, and they are so successful. But in my work, yes, technical efficiency index and win-loss record are highly correlated in that sense.
Yeah, I mean, it would be great if you could separate out really the effect of ownership. So I live next to the Detroit Lions, and that's, they are cursed by the most unbelievably bad ownership that you could imagine, who have destroyed the team for 70 odd years, and no matter what the head coach does. So, it would be nice if you could separate that out. I mean, on the race thing, I just ask that you be a little bit careful about that, because I take what you say. That sounds completely fair, but other people are inclined to say, oh, look, Jaime found that there was no racial discrimination. And then you see that there's, and I have colleagues here at Michigan who do work on this, and they're pretty clear that the real problem is the pipeline, which is black players who want to, or black people who want to get into coaching, really struggle to get into the junior coaching positions. And when they do, they tend to get into the defensive coaching assistant coordinator positions, which are not the ones that lead you to get promoted to head coach. So there's a whole pipeline issue in that. And I wouldn't want people to misinterpret your results, because you were very clear there in saying you're not claiming really that you have very strong results on those.
Yes, absolutely. If you look closer to the data, maybe the real problem is not at the high stakes, but also in the low stakes, when they have seems to be this glass ceiling that couldn't break to achieve the head coach position. And also, I find very, very interesting your comment about the defensive side, due to more of the black head coaches are associated with that side of the ball, and with the change of the rules of the league, it's maybe it's very difficult to promote to head coach if you are a defensive side guy, comparing to the offensive groups such as Sean McVay or maybe Kyle Shanahan, and yes,
If you're
it could be.
the guy Chris Ryder is the guy in the business school here, and he has a paper with a bunch of co-authors about this that's very good. It's about the Rooney Rule. Of course, I'm sure you're familiar with the Rooney Rule and their attempt to try and address this problem of bias.
Okay.
But thank you. Very interesting thing.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Stefan. Thanks, Jaime. More questions and comments? I'll ask a quick question which might betray my lack of understanding of what you've done, Jaime, but just on that technical efficiency index that you're using, and you're then using it to predict whether or not the manager gets sacked or keeps his job, do you do any kind of recursive estimation there, in the sense that if I understand correctly, you estimate the technical efficiency over the whole sample, and
Yes.
then using it within the sample to predict whether someone gets fired. And so in principle, you're using parameterizations that are based on the whole time period, and you're looking at something that's happening at, an early point in the time period. I just wonder whether you're therefore not necessarily evaluating the decision as it's being made in real time, because the people making a decision wouldn't evaluate technical efficiency using the information from the future. So I don't know if it's possible to do a kind of, or whether it even makes sense to do a kind of recursive estimation to get a better sense of exactly how that kind of real-time understanding of technical efficiency, was factored into decisions that were being made.
Yes, I understand what your point, and in this case, I'm with you in that comment. I don't know if I could do with my design. Maybe yes, but I don't know if I could extend my model or the estimation to incorporate that defects. I try in my frontier to incorporate information about the tenure of the head coach, and also I prove with other frontiers to predict the technical efficiency about the age of the head coach, to try to control from its permanence in the league, and in this case other franchises or the same franchise learns about the procedures or the good or the bad the head coach is, but incorporates to the survival analysis. It's a good challenge. I think it's very, very, very interesting, but I don't know if I could do that now. I have to study that to try to accommodate that kind of information.
Yeah, I mean, it might not make any difference, because the parameters might be very stable over the whole time, but it's just, potentially could be quite interesting.
Yes.
Any more questions and comments? Okay, well, it looks like that's all that we've got. And so thank you, Jaime. It was a really interesting presentation, a really interesting piece of work looking at the NFL and technical efficiency and how that impacts decisions being made. So thank you very much for that. I wish you all the best as you develop your research. We are now going to take a break for the Easter. So I wish everyone a happy Easter. And we'll return on the 17th of April, or at least that's the next free slot for a talk. At the moment, there is no one scheduled for that slot. And so if you would like to present on the 17th of April, please do let me know. There are plenty of free slots after Easter. I am currently filling them up into the summer. And so if you do want to present, please do let me know. But as I said, have a great Easter. Thank you once again, Jaime. Thanks everyone for attending. See you all again soon.
See you. Thanks for all.
Thanks, Jaime. Cheers, everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you.